This presentation is dedicated to the inventory of depictions of three major figures of the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project about the beginnings of Christianity. Those figures are Andrea del Verrocchio, circa 1435-1488, Leonardo da Vinci, 1452-1519, and Felice della Rovere, 1483-1536. Their verified depictions are shown above, and, curiously, those are only historically verified depictions of those people. This presentation will dive into other suspected depictions and will provide cursory analyses of the context of those depictions. Nearly all of the depictions of those people are very important for understanding of the content and development of the project. This video and the research it is based on are not the product of artificial intelligence or any other automated research and writing tools. The material is new, and not all statements in this video have the same potential to withstand the test of additional research, time and reason. Use at your own discretion. And you know what? All rights reserved. This decoding will use contextual connection to the now decoded Disputation of the Holy Sacrament and School of Athens, by Raphael, and Last Supper, by Leonardo da Vinci that allows much better understanding of the painting. It also has references to the book Beyond a Reasonable Doubt by Igor Chernyavsky. The narrative is heavily dependent on the supplied visual material. Please, do not hesitate to pause the video to get a better look. From past experience it is known that some viewers are irritated by the narrated voice. Please, keep in mind that you can mute the sound and simply read from the slides. The slides will continue to change after narration is finished in the background. I do not have a quality of voice and performing ability to do my own voiceovers. The budgetary considerations are also a factor in the choice of robotic voiceover versus a live one. Questions and comments are welcome. Shown on this slide is Madonna with Saint John the Baptist and Saint Donatus, 1475-1483, by Andrea del Verrocchio. This is a very early, but not the earliest, painting related to the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project. It features the correct, significant, age difference between John the Baptist and Jesus and priceless look on the face of Verrocchio, who depicted himself as a Saint Donatus. His facial expression conveys suspicion and disapproval. John the Baptist is shown at the moment of posturing and he is dressed in the theatrical Mephistophelian colors, red and black. In the context of the project this painting is important, but by itself it conveys a concept, not the particulars, with exception of the statement that John the Baptist was a bad character. It needs to be noted that one early painting was discovered to exist that carried a similar theme. Could be a coincidence, or it is possible that Andrea del Verrocchio built his understanding of the biblical story on some earlier suspicions. Fresco, Disputation of the Holy Sacrament, was decoded and technically nicknamed Last Judgment, as Raphael wanted to convey an idea of culpability of prominent figures of Christianity. Andrea del Verrocchio is one of the witnesses for prosecution, with Leonardo da Vinci as a leading prosecutor. Figure of Andrea del Verrocchio was long mistaken for the figure of Girolamo Savonarola, but the true, hidden, context of the fresco helps to correct that mistake. Depiction of the Andrea del Verrocchio was placed by Raphael behind his own image, underscoring the fact that discoveries of Verrocchio were a foundation of Raphael's own views on the subject. Raphael depicted himself in Conversation with Judas of the New Testament, who is pointing to the people on trial after centuries of misdeeds. This theme is repeated several times in the paintings repeated to the project, by Raphael himself and by Paolo Veronese. Pointing of Judas refers to his suicide mentioned but wildly misinterpreted in Gospels. Judas, along with Peter, were swordsmen of Jesus' protective detail, not disciples. Dante Alighieri depicted right near as an allusion to the suggested punishment of the perpetrators. He is a most famous expert on hell, Inferno. It should be noted that intentional distortion of the image was utilized by Raphael, along with intentional misattribution. Andrea del Verrocchio is right at home in the largest anti-Trinitarian painting ever. That Disputation of the Holy Sacrament really is The explanation of his presence in the official context would be difficult, however. True meaning of this sketch by Michelangelo, 1475 to 1564, that was officially called Madonna of the Silence, was uncovered only recently. At this point, the identification of the older person as Andrea del Verrocchio is a hypothesis/suggestion. It is a part of the hypothesis that all three people in question are depicted in this sketch or unfinished work by Michelangelo. Objectively, nose, forehead and eyebrows match known Verrocchio likeness. It is most obvious that Michelangelo never met Andrea del Verrocchio, 1435 to 1488, in person. The earliest known artistic use of the likeness of Leonardo da Vinci is a famous bronze cast of young King David in the moment of triumph after the beheading giant Goliath, by Andrea del Verrocchio, made between 1473 and 1475. It has long been suspected that young Leonardo was a model for this statue. While this presentation makes no assertions about this well-founded suspicion, Leonardo was an apprentice of Verrocchio and visuals are all there, and the work itself does not have any tangible connection to the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project. It is still very well worth mentioning as reference point for the later use. The likeness of the statue will be reused by other artists as the disguise for secret inclusion of Leonardo da Vinci in their work. The next depiction of Leonardo da Vinci was recently discovered in the Crucifixion by Andrea Mantegna, 1431 to 1506, originally from the high altar of San Zeno, Verona, Italy, now in Louvre. The dating of this painting is most certainly incorrect, as 1450 is making Andrea Mantegna a 19-year-old, and even 1459 is also too early. This painting definitely belongs to the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project and deserves a careful look. The man on horseback is the second oldest depiction of Leonardo da Vinci discovered so far. Obviously, it is a hypothesis. The facial features are not exactly the same, the statue and the paintings are in different cities, very far apart, but there is just enough similarity to make a positive ID. It is actually closer to the known likeness of Leonardo da Vinci, the nose, than the statue of David. The decisive point, however, is unusual headgear of the rider made from the lion's skull/pelt. It is most definitely a male lion with mane, distinctive from other big cats. It is a word play in any Western language lion, Leo, Leonardo. The role that Leonardo plays in the composition of the painting calls for further explanation. This is a basic chessboard of the Crucifixion painting by Andrea Mantegna. It is derived from the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project about the beginnings of Christianity. Leonardo da Vinci, by the virtue of the findings of the project, is shown confronting the evil mastermind John the Baptist. The pile of human bones is an allusion to the end result of the hideous teachings of John the Baptist. The horse of Leonardo is in the way of the evil dark horse of the New Testament. Only John the Baptist and Pontius Pilate paying attention to Jesus, who is the weakest and failed link in their plan, and all the women weeping about John the Baptist whose execution will follow soon after the crucifixion of Jesus. At the same time, Crucifixion, by Andrea Mantegna got some details slightly incorrect. Mary Magdalene looks sad and perplexed, and she is depicted somewhat too young. Real Mary Magdalene is in the mid to late 30th and is not likely to be derailed by the death of Jesus. There are Peter and Judas shown on the scene of crucifixion. While the presence of Judas, the disciple that Jesus loved, is indicated in the Gospel of John, and probably was a real thing, Judas was perceived as a turncoat, but he only played the temple authorities. At the end his game did save his life for a time, but did not save the life of Jesus. Judas did not commit suicide before crucifixion as alluded in the Gospel of Matthew by placing that story before the description of crucifixion. Gospels are products of sectarian security services, and that kind of switcheroo is their signature style. As for the presence of Peter, it is highly unlikely. Peter, a second swordsman of Jesus' security detail, along with Judas, did try to find a way to free Jesus, or kill him to spare from tortures and prevent any possible damaging testimony, in the night of arrest, but he was too well known to be in the open. He was a wanted man. There are guards shown casting lots for the Jesus' royal garments, and Judas shown negotiating with a Roman officer in charge of the guard. Those were very important negotiations, and Judas had leftover money from his involuntary engagement with the temple guard from the day of cleansing the temple, really a neurological tantrum of Jesus. It is known from historical sources that friends and family of the condemned to die in the prolonged and torturous way, like crucifixion or burning at stake, sometimes bribed executioners to kill their loved ones faster and reduce the agony. Jesus was on the cross for some time when the hit of the Roman spear came to end his life, not to probe if he is still alive. That was accomplished by offering him a wet sponge. In a high-profile case like his, intervention by well-meaning friends would be very risky, but Judas had no choice. Executioners intended to break the legs of crucified to shorten the gruesome spectacle. In the painting, Jesus is shown with the puncture wound from the spear, as described in the Gospel of John, and one of the criminals crucified alongside him shown with his legs broken while another one shown with his legs intact. That was meant to highlight the primary concern of Judas, to keep the legs of Jesus intact, even after his death. Judas witnessed resurrection spectacles performed by Jesus when a dead person, who was entombed alive beforehand and awaiting a signal, walked out of the tomb during the resurrection spectacle. With his legs broken, Jesus would not be able to do the walk-out part. Killing Jesus with the spear saved his legs. Jesus talked a lot about his own death and subsequent resurrection. He was a neurological patient, and his dream of resurrection was a delusion that turned obsession. But Judas, being his friend and bodyguard and constantly listening to Jesus' obsessive thoughts, somehow took it at face value and pressed Mary Magdalene, who commanded the whole operation, to arrange the tomb funeral, just like it was in the resurrection spectacles that Judas witnessed as performances of Jesus. Apparently, Judas was not in the know about the part that all resurrected were entombed alive and waited for Jesus to call them out as a part of the performance. Mary Magdalene obviously knew, but decided not to argue with Judas. When concerned priests asked Pontius Pilate to guard the tomb out of suspicion that body of Jesus would be snatched, plans of Judas changed. Using Roman connections of Mary Magdalene and access that sect of John the Baptist had to the corrupt Pontius Pilate, Judas arranged to move the body of Jesus from the tomb to the abandoned clay shaft or mine in Akeldama. There Jesus was laid to rest with expectations of upcoming resurrection. When that plan failed to bring expected results, Judas, in the moment of despair, killed himself. All of the above was obvious to Leonardo da Vinci by the end of 15th century. He and other painters encoded results of the research into multiple paintings, including the famous Last Supper. Crucifixion, painting by Andrea Mantegna, is one of the earliest paintings reflecting the knowledge gained as the result of the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project, 1472 to 1498. Young age of Leonardo da Vinci as depicted is indirect evidence of that. To underscore understanding of a discovery made in the course of the project that Jesus' ministry was mostly theatrics, Andrea Mantegna utilized faces of two criminals crucified alongside with Jesus to allude to theatrical masks of comedy and tragedy that traditionally symbolize theater. It is obvious that both criminals have the same, identical, face, just different facial expressions. Sardonic smile versus horror of pain. The turn and tilt of the head is also the same to reinforce the impression. Two traditional theatrical masks are shown to compare. The next appearance of Leonardo da Vinci in the painting related to the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project is in Lamentation over the Dead Christ, by Pietro Perugino, painted in 1495. In the framework of the project, it is not an early work, but it is very important in several ways. While Pietro Perugino is known in his own right, his main historical significance is as a teacher and mentor of Raphael, who was orphaned at a very young age. Perugino also pioneered his own, distinctive style of painting. In the Lamentation, Judas points to Mary Magdalene as if explaining to Leonardo da Vinci that she is one of the main culprits in the Jesus ordeal. Mary Magdalene showed as defensive and apprehensive. As usual, Perugino included his wife in the painting, and looks like more than once. The full consideration of the painting will not be provided to save time, but images of Leonardo and pointing by Judas deserve a closer look. In 1495, when Lamentation over the Dead Christ, by Pietro Perugino was painted, Leonardo da Vinci was 43 years old. In the 15th century it was the age of maturity. The face of the figure purported to be Leonardo da Vinci has a lot in common with later, official, depiction by Francesco Melzi, Leonardo's assistant, 1518, only 1 year prior Leonardo's death at the age of 67. Nose, cheeks, forehead and eye sockets are very much alike in both depictions, validating contextual hints that prompted the identification. As for pointing by Judas, Raphael would go on and reuse it in both The Disputation of the Holy Sacrament and School of Athens, confirming his reputation as someone who appropriates other artists' ideas. To his defense, he was very talented, but only 30 years of age when he started to work on those frescoes. In The Disputation of the Holy Sacrament, Judas points Raphael to the assembly of Christian leaders and theologians on trial for misleading and deceiving humanity for centuries. In the School of Athens, Judas points at John the Baptist as a main perpetrator in the sufferings and death of Jesus and most of the deception that followed. As a way of expressing gratitude, Raphael immortalized Pietro Perugino, his teacher and friend, along with another friend, diplomat and writer Baldassare Castiglione, in the fresco School of Athens. Most obviously, Pietro Perugino was in the know about the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project. Baldassare Castiglione probably also knew, and School of Athens is one of the major paintings affirming the conclusions of the project. On the context level, both The Disputation of the Holy Sacrament, 1510 to 1512, and School of Athens, 1513 to 1514, features the appearance of Leonardo da Vinci in person. He is not inserted, he is a part of the hidden narrative in each of the paintings. It is not Justin Martyr arguing Holy Sacrament, it is Leonardo da Vinci in the role of prosecutor in the Last Judgment over the bad actors responsible for misleading theology and despicable church leaders of the past. Likewise, it is a Leonardo da Vinci, scientist and humanist, not Plato, who is challenging John the Baptist over his misdeeds, treatment of Jesus and bringing up the darkness of confusion and ignorance over mankind. Both of those frescoes were fully decoded in the separate presentations. As it was mentioned before, the true meaning of this sketch by Michelangelo, 1475 to 1564, that was officially known as Madonna of the Silence, was uncovered only recently. At this point, the identification of the older person as Andrea del Verrocchio is a hypothesis/suggestion. It is a part of the same hypothesis that all three people in question depicted on this sketch or unfinished work by Michelangelo. As far as a hypothesis goes, the young person in the back is Leonardo da Vinci. His face resembles the face of the statue of David by Verrocchio, and he is shown wearing a lion headgear, just like a personage in the painting by Andrea Mantegna. It is suspected from historical records that Michelangelo did not particularly like Leonardo da Vinci ever since the days of competition for commission of the statue of David in Florence. Instead of bringing himself to draw a picture of Leonardo, he simply copied an already existing depiction, in a way of caricature. The finger put to the mouth and calling for silence is obviously related to the content of the project that was meant to remain secret. Turn/tilt of a head is very close to David and the mirror of the depiction by Mantegna. I challenge everyone to find yet another unidentified person depicted wearing the lion headgear in the 15th and 16th century paintings. The only limitation is the exclusion of paintings made from the sketch of Michelangelo by other painters. Until that effort bears fruit, Lion Leo would stand for allusion to Leonardo. The list of the depictions of the Felice della Rovere will begin in part 2 of the presentation. After everything was finalized, this fresco from Sistine Chapel by Pietro Perugino and assistants came to my attention. It is a Baptism of Christ, 1482. The people that are in the circle on the viewers' right side of the fresco deserve special attention. The group of people highlighted are the teacher and his students. It is amazing how Pietro Perugino switched off his signature style and turned to not yet invented photography. The teacher and his students are shown as expressing various degrees of disdain or disappointment to what they see. Most interestingly, the teacher, who is Andrea del Verrocchio, also painted his own telltale version of the Baptism of Christ, a very important painting in the framework of the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project. That part of the fresco undoubtedly reflects onto the real-life teaching moment from the past. It is not a contemporary depiction but rather a recollection from the memory, Andrea del Verrocchio and his most important students. I do not have the knowledge yet to really tell who is who there, but this is a very good depiction of Verrocchio by the hand of his former student Perugino, and right beside him is very young but easily recognizable Leonardo da Vinci, a one-time model for the stature of the young King David. As for other students of Verrocchio, just the number of them is a good hint about the true extent of the proliferation of the knowledge about the Verrocchio/Da Vinci project among the Renaissance painters and sculptors. As for Felice della Rovere, she will be born in about a year after Pietro Perugino finished this fresco. In her own time she will do her part for the project like nobody else possibly could.